Good morning, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, and welcome to this week's Weekly Energy Boost. My name is Elisheva, and I'm here this beautiful Monday morning with one of our Kabbalistic astrologers, Miriam Ashkenazi, who is going to finally shed light on how having Kabbalistic astrology in general can be such a powerful tool to understanding all relationships. Today we're going to focus, of course, on family, because this entire month we've been focusing on the opportunity that our family presents us with, not only our parents and our ancestors, but also our children, how we can use those relationships specifically as a tool for growth, what we can understand from those people, how we can learn from them. And today I think it's the peak of the discussion, because there's so much we can learn. I think that a lot of us wrestle with those relationships, even when those people, let's say the relationships are no longer challenging. We still wrestle with, why were they challenging? What did I do wrong, etc. And today Miriam is going to help us better understand how Kabbalistic astrology can help us as a tool in general, and then specifically for our relationships with our family members. Weekly Energy Boost is a 7-day spiritual energy forecast. We have been focusing actually on a monthly energy for the last year or so, and looking at this month's energy, as we've been speaking about, the desire to control others. I think it's hardest to control the people that are closest to us. It may seem like it's easier to control them when in fact it's not. But even in the bigger picture, controlling the narrative, right? I think I got an email from somebody not long ago that she was asking me, what do I think makes me a great parent? And I thought to myself, who said I think I'm a great parent? And you know, I just sharing in the conversation with her, I can share with our listeners that really the understanding that not only is my family, the individuals in my family are unique individuals. We talked last week about not hurting, not H-U-R-T, but H-E-R-D-I-N-G, not hurting our children like shepherds. They're not a flock, even though they obviously have things in common by choosing us as their parents. But the idea that each one of them has a unique path and a unique journey. Nobody can write that journey for them. But I think sometimes as parents and as children, we try to control the perception of what's going on. And that's one of the struggles, not only as parents, but as children of our parents. We want the perfect childhood, or we want our children to remember their childhood as being a perfect childhood. We want, even when there is difficulty and conflict, and I think David brought this up a few weeks ago, or maybe it was last week, I don't even know anymore, that a lot of times parents will be struggling with something and they try to protect the children from it. And the desire to, I don't know if the word is manipulate, but to direct, maybe that's the right word, to be the director of what's going on and to have things go your way or to seem the way you want them to seem is a big struggle for a lot of us and a source of a lot of stress and anxiety and pressure. Sometimes our family is the source of that pressure. They want us to live our lives a certain way or be a certain way, and it's hard for us to not be that way or to disappoint them, let's say. So we want to look specifically today at how really what the tool of Kabbalistic astrology is. And even for those of you who know about Kabbalistic astrology, last year this time around, I think it was in October, we had another Kabbalistic astrologer on the show, Yael Yardeni, and she presented a forecast for the coming year for each individual sign, which in 50 minutes was an impossible feat. Today, we really want to understand on a personal level how we can use this tool to understand ourselves and our family relationships. So Miriam, thank you for being here this morning. It's not, I'm not a morning person, so I always appreciate when people roll out of bed to be their best selves on camera in the morning with me.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So where should we begin? Let's share with our listeners. I mean, you do this basically all day long, right, every day. How do you see the impact of Kabbalistic astrology on people's lives and their relationships?
So First of all, I'm excited. Thank you for this opportunity. Family is like, I'm a Cancer. Cancer is the sign of family. This is the topic that's really close to my heart. So, everyone is born in a precise moment that we learn through Kabbalah that it's actually the perfect time. Thank you. The perfect time for the setting, the perfect environment, the perfect family in order to help them become the best version of themselves. Kabbalistic astrology helps us to understand through the cosmic setting in this precise moment how the person actually do the work. We look at it like a navigation map. Where was Venus? Where was Mars? Other elements in the chart, your sun, the moon. This really gives you the ability, and us Kabbalistic astrologers gives us the tool to see and to guide someone how to navigate from where they are towards the point of their ultimate self, the point where their ultimate tikkun is, and to really see the different possible routes that they can choose. It's not really definitive or futuristic the way that the Kabbalists look at astrology, Kabbalistic astrology. It's really a roadmap to help us understand how to overcome certain maybe predictable challenges, but they're not really predictable. It's really up to the person's choice, but you want to see what those challenges might be and help us to also see what are the possible gifts that a person could have. So that's obviously something that it's good for each individual for themselves. But when you talk about the setting of a family, when me as a mother or as a parent, you're able to take a look at that chart and to understand better the tikkun, the process, the journey that the person that is recommended for the child to go through or for any family member, there is a better, bigger picture perspective and that can give you a lot of guidance, a lot of tools, a lot of clarity and depth.
So let's say, I'm a spiritual person. Thank you so much. I want to know, even retroactively. I mean, I remember sitting in an astrology chart when I was a teenager and having the astrologer talk to me about my father. I also had a Kabbalistic astrologer maybe 20 years ago tell me I'm going to have 6 kids, and I only had 3 at the time. And I do have 6 kids, by the way. So like you said, there are some things that you can see the potential, so can you give us some examples of what are the things that, maybe those fixed things, like where do you see the father, where do you see the mother, where do you see the kids?
Okay, so first of all, when you look at a chart, the chart is divided to 12 houses. It's actually the different areas of life that you could relate to as a human being. If it's your family, if it's your personality, if it's your career, if it's how you contribute to your environment, to the society, if it's your spiritual life. So in the chart itself, we can recognize specifically in the 4th house elements that connected to your past, to your parents, to your childhood. And also the 4th and the 10th house relate to the parents as well. Also, the planets themselves, we all look at 10 planets when we read a chart. And the moon, for example. Everyone has their moon in their chart somewhere. The moon tells us a lot about us, if it's women or as mothers, but also about our relationship with our mothers and us, as I said, as a mother, and has a lot to do to connect to our mother. And Saturn, for example, tells us a lot about the male figures in our life, and specifically the father figures and the relationship that we have with our father, the way we see our father. And also in our kids' charts, those indications for how they view us, what's the relationship with us. And this is really incredible.
I found that as a mom, learning about the moon in all my kids' charts has really helped me become a better mother, but really become aware of how I project certain belief systems on certain kids and other belief systems on other kids. And for me personally, my kids have, I have 6 kids, but 2 of them have one moon and 2 of them have another moon. So I have 2 kids, 4 kids that I'm projecting similar messages on, which is interesting.
Right.
But for me, I can tell you, even I had a funny story. A funny thing happened to me when I had a reading done many years ago. I think it was Yael that did the reading, and she said to me, "Are you sure this is the time and date that you were born?" And I said, "That's what my birth certificate says. That's what I've always used for my astrology readings." So she said, "No, something is wrong. It says, according to your chart, you're a child of divorce." And she knows my parents, and she knows my parents are married. But what she didn't know is that my parents were separated for 3 years when I was young. They were planning to divorce, and they got back together. So from 9 to 12 or 8 to 11, my parents lived in separate houses and were drawing up papers to be separated. So I have the scar of having divorced parents, and then the scar of them getting back together as well. But it was just interesting to see that the chart is so precise that she could see that happened to me without knowing. It's so precise that she was sure the calculation was wrong, rather than the actual information the chart was giving her.
Right.
So let's say I'm a parent who wants to understand more about my kids.
Right.
How can a chart reading help them?
So I think the first thing is, first of all, you want to understand about yourself. So
that I'm perfect.
Yeah. No, because like you said in the beginning, we can project. We think, like, we have a certain tikkun, and this is something that can be identified really precisely in a chart reading. You could see specifically by the location, we call it in astrology the north node and the south node, where you're coming from, what struggles will you bring with you from past life, and what is the energy, which is the north node, that you need to develop and nurture in this lifetime. And this is the point of tikkun. What is it that you hear to evolve, to become? Now, each one obviously has it differently. And what you're working towards is not necessarily what your kids needs to work towards. For you, it seems, like this is the way maybe for everyone. But first, to understand
I want to stop you there, because you said something really important that I'm not sure we've ever explained explicitly.
Okay.
A lot of people come to spirituality because they're looking for their purpose. They want to bring more purpose and meaning to their lives. And I think for a lot of people, they find that on a spiritual path. And for sure, the people that we work with, that we interact with, find it when they study Kabbalah. But I think a lot of the world looks for that meaning and purpose outside of themselves. I need to find the cause that I am passionate about. I need to find the career that's going to inspire me and push me, and I hopefully will make money in pursuing that profession. What Miriam just explained from a Kabbalistic point of view is that our purpose is not outside of us. There may be certain opportunities we can pursue outside of us that will help us fulfill that purpose. But according to Kabbalah, our purpose is, what did we come here to transform, and what gifts we came to share with the world. Now, I think we have said that in different ways, but now, from the soul point of view, this whole month's exploration on understanding, the soul is only concerned with our fulfilling our potential. So we asked the question last week, why would my soul choose a difficult family to be born into? Why would I choose why would a soul choose to be raised by only one parent or their grandparents, or to be adopted? And, there's so many difficult, even far more difficult challenges that a child may experience. Why would they choose that? And we talked about how the soul isn't looking for what's going to be easiest or smoothest or most convenient. The soul is looking for what's going to help us express our full potential. So what's amazing about looking at the chart is that you can look at a newborn's chart, and from what Miriam was just sharing, the south and the north node, you can see what they were in their previous lifetime, what sign they were, and different aspects that can show what baggage they may be bringing with them into this lifetime, as well as, and I found this to be really valuable as a parent, how you can help strengthen, what kind of support they need to become who they need to be.
Exactly. So this is very powerful. So first of all, as I said, you need to know yourself. But then when you look at your your kids or your husband or anyone in your family, you understand they have a different mission. Sometimes they might have the same mission, right? They
Do
might
you see that a lot?
you see that, but I mainly see differences, and that's usually what we're struggling with, because we go in a certain direction, and how do we nurture and give room and allow them to go in a direction that it's not our direction. But I think this is from the get-go a good start to really give them the tools to become the best version of themselves and to separate ourselves from the process. Because if we don't see that, we're very affected by our individual direction. So I'll give you a quick example.
Please.
So I'm a Cancer, as I mentioned in the beginning. You know, Cancer known to be a lot of things, but among very nurturing, caring, just you want to protect and give constantly. And we know that some people, it might not be the best way to help them. You know, for a kid to become more independent and to grow to become more, you know, to how do you say, to kind of like invest in their individuality and to help them to become something that they, as I said, more independent, let's put it that way. That type of energy is not always the best one. I have one child that has a Tikkun in the sign of Capricorn. In past life, it's the opposite sign. She was a Cancer. So me as a mom, as a Cancer, has my natural tendencies to constantly want to overprotect her, which she actually needs to be thrown to the situation, to deal with things alone. Go, you don't need mama. You don't need, you know, you don't need that energy. So for me, I work on that part within me. But at the same time, when I understand her Tikkun, and this is just talking about her North Node, it's in the sign that needs to constantly be pushed towards, you know, believing that they can do it on their own. So you see already the dynamic. If I understand it better, and if a parent understands it better, this is, you know, it's like a life mission. And you constantly learn how to nurture what the child really need. So
it's true. Yeah. I remember when I was in high school, I taught a Kabbalistic astrology class at my high school. and one of the kids, she was a peer, not just a couple of years younger than me probably, she said, you know, when I hear you talking about each sign, it kind of sounds manipulative. And to me, when I started to learn Kabbalistic astrology, I felt like I had this superpower that no one else had. Like I had an understanding not only of the world, but I was able to understand other people in a way that I felt was such a gift, right? And for those of you that have read the book, The 5 Love Languages by something Chapman, I can't remember his first name, Mr. Chapman. You know, he shares there through his research, which I've kind of also found is pretty precise, that there are 5 love languages. And if you learn your partner's love language, if you learn your family and friends' love languages, they will feel more loved, right? Our tendency, like Miriam said, she's Cancerian. Her tendency is to love the way she knows how to express love. But that's not always the way, Gary Chapman, thank you so much. That's not always the way that the other person wants to be loved or feels love. And to me, Kabbalistic astrology is a very similar, it's obviously more ancient, and I just know that it's as a frame of reference, a lot of people have read that book. When you learn, like Miriam was saying, that her child needs to learn to be independent, autonomous, to have full agency, not to wait for someone to do it for them or to push them to do it. What it does is it allows you to communicate with them in the way that's best for them, not the way that's best for you. And to me, realizing that realization that I'm not here, it's so perfect for this month as well. It's like, it doesn't matter what I want. It doesn't matter what I think is important. If you know, that quote that I think again, I'm going to mess it up, but like, having a child is like getting a package of seeds that doesn't have a label on it. You don't know what seeds are inside, and your job is just to kind of respond to the cues and nurture and water and give them the sunlight and what they need, and they're going to grow and they're going to grow and they're going to grow in the way that they grow. Kabbalistic astrology is like finding the label. That's to me, I used that example last week, but it really is. It's even if you can't, the chart can't predict what profession they'll have, how successful they'll be, how what zip code they're going to live in, but it can give you the invisible directions, the things that are not necessarily, what are some of the messages that they need to hear reinforced for them, so that when they encounter their own challenges as an individual, they will feel the strength and the ability to do it. And that's not something that I think retroactively, and we see this a lot in TV and movies and books and stuff, hindsight is 20/20. You look back on the past and you realize the relationship is over and you say, oh my God, now I know if I'd only knew then what I know now. Mm-hmm. Kabbalistic astrology allows you to know now what you might figure out in 5 or 10 or 15 years from now. And again, not for the sake of manipulating the other person. It's really, maybe we can talk a little bit about also in your partner, when you do a chart with, let's say, spouses or two people in a relationship, how maybe it makes sense why you would want to do your child's chart. How would doing a couple's chart, or looking at your partner's chart even, maybe they don't even care, but looking at their chart, how would that enrich a relationship?
Right. So I just want to mention something.
Please.
Itching to say, what's amazing, it's true, right? You want to help everyone in your family, right? So it's your child, it's your partner, but it's beyond that. What we're able to see, and this is how beautiful this whole setup is, how magical it is actually how everyone within your closest environment, which is your family, is actually the best messenger or agent to help you as well. So that's why I'm saying, first, you see your own chart, and when you start to learning about the setting of everyone in your family, you start to understand how they are the perfect messenger that is sent to help you with certain elements that will allow you to grow spiritually. And this is beautiful. Now, to your question about your partner. So basically, one of the elements that we're checking when we're taking a look at the entire family or the partners or the kids, we don't just look at their individual chart. We take the two charts together, or maybe the people that you want to check your relationship with, and we're able to see and to read beyond this lifetime together.
Okay, so that was going to be my next question, so I'm glad you're going there.
Okay,
go.
So when you put those charts together, you see how the planets and different elements really interact with each other. What affects what? So it's like what activates what, right? If my moon sits on my husband's sun and it's in a good...
it sounds so funny.
I know, and it's in a good aspect, then there is something emotional, positive that's going on. And beyond that, we also look at the north nodes and the south nodes that gives us the indication and the information and the wisdom about relationship from past life. So we're able to see what we're bringing into this relationship. Many times it's unexplainable in the setting of this current lifetime, right? There's certain struggles, certain buttons that are always being pushed and you don't understand why they're being pushed. I feel resentful and I don't know why. He never did anything, but every time he does that, nothing explains it.
Sometimes you see it also between siblings, that they have this friction between them that there's no reason for. Nothing happened in this life, yet they seem to have something. They're out to get each other for some reason.
Right. So that helps you to kind of expand your scope and view beyond this lifetime to understand where is it coming from and what's the way to work on it and what elements in the chart can help you to really resolve that issue and constantly work on it. So this is beautiful. It's more than understanding each individual. It's understanding the dynamic. The dynamic within the family, the dynamic in the relationship that is beyond this lifetime. It's really coming from lifetimes after lifetimes.
So that I think is one of the things that we touched on a little bit, but we didn't really get too deep into. And I think that this is the right opportunity for us. That we sort of said in a general way that often the same souls come together lifetime after lifetime, maybe in different roles. Maybe parents become children, and there's different dynamics. And there's a lot. I read a lot in modern, not modern literature, but I think emerging in psychology and things like that is the idea of generational trauma. The way that our parents raise us has a lot to do with the way they were raised, or not only the way they were raised, but what they also weren't given as children. And going back generations and generations, there are, even on a cellular level, I was reading different things about how on a cellular level, on the DNA level, you can actually detect traumatic responses or traumatic situations from 2 generations ago. That it's like the programming that your great grandparents or grandparents programmed their children and their children. So you actually have a similar traumatic response, even though the trauma itself never happened to you. And then we understand on a spiritual level that great grandparent could be you. And what an amazing understanding that, I think maybe when we were growing up, the model was, your parents are to blame for everything, right? Or maybe not your parents, but maybe even you had a teacher or some sort of authority in your past that left an impression. Maybe it was a positive one. Usually it's a negative one that we're blaming them for. And that's what sets us up. We talked about this a few weeks ago, but, the Kabbalistic astrology or Kabbalah in general tells us your childhood is not a cause. Your childhood is simply the installation of the software that gives you direction in what you're here to work on and what you're here to share. How can you, it's fascinating to me that you can even look. I've had in readings before astrologers tell me about my last lifetime and how my mother and I in our last lifetime, what our relationship was. Help me understand, help our listeners understand how learning about that can help resolve lifetimes of Tikkun.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I think what it helps you to understand, and it's something that you mentioned, is that everything is actually set up for your favor. To be born to a, childhood, for example, that your parents get divorced very early in time. And, you don't have a stable home. If we don't come with spiritual understanding, and more than that, we can get really very personal with looking at the Kabbalistic chart. If we don't have that consciousness that it's coming to serve us, that it's for our favor, it's here so we can develop something that any other environment or setting will not help us to raise above it. So, for example, if someone come with an issue of relying too much on their family, or to external support, and they born to a reality where they constantly being thrown to be on their own, if you understand that this is something that you come to overcome, you understand how it's really for your benefit. So understanding what happened in past life, where did you fall, right? You said, what baggage do you carry? Where exactly, every time you hit a certain challenge, you kind of backed off and you didn't choose to overcome it in a spiritual way, you'll understand why this challenge come to you again in this lifetime with a spiritual understanding. You have actually an opportunity to evolve, to grow, to raise above it. And this is the way we get this outlook through the understanding of past life that can help us to really appreciate those challenges or those settings, those natural settings, because this is actually the vehicle, the tool for us to overcome, to transform, and to grow.
So let's like take a practical example, and maybe you can share what you would say. I see even, people write to us in the comments when we're during the shows, during episodes, about guilt, that they were raised in a very guilty environment.
Right.
I think a lot in previous generations, guilt did work on inspiring people to do. I mean, parents use guilt as a motivator, right? Finish your food. There are kids in whatever country that don't have food to eat.
Right.
If you don't, very simple. If you don't get your degree, you're going to regret it. If you don't this, you're going to, it's like always the threat is with guilt or fear. Obviously, fear is a big one as well. Why? I'm thinking specifically about a few weeks ago, somebody said they were raised in a very Catholic family, and guilt is like their number one. It's on the bumper sticker of every car. You should feel guilty. Guilt is in a way
the motivator.
The motivator.
Right.
How do you help people that are so conditioned to feel guilty about everything?
So, first of all, it's fascinating to see that when someone struggles with something, guilt is an example, and it's constantly showing up in their life. Many times, most of the time, almost 100% of the time, it's something that they engage with in past life as the one that gives the guilt, right? So you experience something that you weren't engaging in the most spiritual way before, and now you need to learn to deal with it from the other side. Many times you recognize it. I can't say all the times. That's one thing. The second thing is we know that functioning out of guilt from a spiritual perspective, from a Kabbalistic perspective, is not the right motivator in life. We understand that we need to really be connected to our soul, that we want to understand what we really want, what our soul really want, that probably if you're in an environment that is very much, there is a lot of guilt involved, you're having a hard time to understand what you really want or to support your ideas and to not be too affected by your external environment. So that's being thrown at you so you can develop that. And now you need to learn how to develop that beyond that guilt that being thrown at you at all those moments. But if it won't be thrown at you, you won't be able to exercise and to develop those muscles that, that help you to be guilt-free.
What Miriam said a second ago is actually, she went through it very quickly, and I want to make sure it was clear because it's really profound. Miriam used the example of guilt. I'm going to use the example of control just because it's in the air now. Let's say, for example, you feel, I'm trying to think of, my husband and I were actually talking about somebody that we love, and we're helping them get through something. And my husband was saying, you don't really realize how controlling their parents are. And, I was thinking about the soul choosing to come, thinking about these episodes and everything. Why would a soul choose to come into a family that was controlling? Because, and like you said, it's almost 100% of the time, in a previous lifetime, they were the controlling ones. And I think in other schools of thought, other philosophies, you would call that karma. What we understand about that cycle is that it's not just about the behavior. Meaning, in a previous lifetime, let's say I was the controlling person. I need to come into this lifetime and feel controlled. Why? Not so that I can be controlled, but so that I can choose to not be controlled, or choose. A person can try and control me, but I get to decide what I do with that, right? In a previous lifetime, when I was the controlling one, the real shift is to understand what made me feel the need to control, right? It's less the external exercise of me being controlled, or even that person that my husband and I were talking about. Why is it that why would a mother feel the need to control their 40-year-old child, right?
Right.
What is that? Maybe it's insecurity. Maybe it's feeling I think for a lot of parents, we spoke about this before as well, feeling their self-worth is tied up in their kids' success. So they want their kids, they look at their success as it needs to be this way. And therefore, the child not hitting those marks is a sign of failure.
Right.
But understanding that it's not simply about what you give is what you get. We say that, but it goes much deeper. It's what was the reactive behavior inside, that reactive consciousness that caused the need to control the situation or to control the family or to control the partner, because it's the control is usually coming from something else.
What was the trigger?
Exactly.
Right.
And so when we talk about it, it's not simply what you give is what you get. It is also what you give is what you get, but we're always looking for the underlying cause. And that's why in the generational cycle, oh, my family's so controlling. I'm not saying it is. I'm an actor right now. My parents were controlling. Their parents tried to control them. Their parents tried to control them on how many other generations. It's not simply about shifting the control narrative. It's why. Why are we so controlling? What is the Miriam used the word trigger, which I don't like that word because I don't like it. I don't like it because that's what it is. There's something that goes off that awakens the need to control or to manipulate or to, feel guilty or whatever. The guilt comes from, even though the guilt itself may be a trigger, there's usually something that triggers the guilt, and then the reactive behavior takes over. So we want to not only look at the external. I know a lot of people look at astrology as I want to know what's going to happen. I want to predict, are we going to be okay? People look at, I even think when in looking at a child's chart, a parent might say, just tell me my kid is going to be okay, right? The purpose, or let's put it this way, nothing is fixed. Nothing is set in stone. Nothing is predetermined. I remember a million years ago, maybe in the 90s, early 90s, I had a psychic reading done. No disrespect to psychics. I think the person I went to was fabulous. But she told me I was going to marry a millionaire. And I was very upset because I wanted to be a Kabbalah teacher and marry a Kabbalah teacher and live a humble, not to be busy with the material world, but to really be focused on spirituality and reaching people. And I went to my teacher, Karen Berg, and I was like, with tears in my eyes, I don't want to marry a millionaire. I want to marry a Kabbalah teacher. So Karen told me, at any given moment, you have a trajectory. If you stand still for the rest of your life, you will marry a millionaire. Mm-hmm. That's basically what Karen told me.
If you let everything affect you, influence you.
If you don't exercise change, influence, if you don't budge from your spiritual level right now, that's your destiny.
Right.
But if you change your future. And to me, I maybe that was one of the most pivotal moments in like my young spiritual life where I realized it's totally up to me. And maybe there are influences that I cannot change, but I can change how I respond to those influences.
Exactly.
And that to me is one of the biggest gifts of learning Kabbalistic astrology, of being conscious, right? That's one of the reasons that every episode we bring in that energy. It's the same thing. It's just a different lens, different filter to look through it, is that the more you know, the better you're equipped to make those decisions. So that if you sit and you hear in an astrology reading, well, in the last 5 lifetimes, you chose to be alone, and in this lifetime, you may want to make different choices.
Right.
That to me is a very powerful piece of information. Ultimately, you get to decide what to do with it. But to have that information is very powerful.
Right. I agree. An example, 2 people can be born also from a, astrological perspective. 2 people can be born exactly on the same time in the same city, and we all know that they end up
twins. What are you talking about? Twins.
Exactly. Twins. It's all about choices. Like how Karen told you, you can change every moment. It's totally up to us But to have that wisdom, to have that vision, it's unbelievable.
Miriam, can you tell us a little bit about the special family charts that you do specifically? What's so unique about them?
Yeah. So it's been many years that we've been offering all the astrologers, the Kabbalah Center. The most maybe complex reading would be a comparison chart. And a comparison chart is taking two charts and, as I said in the beginning, putting one on top of the other, and we're looking at the dynamic of those two souls, those two charts. And that could be, a mother that want to see her relationship with their son, or someone that want to understand their difficulties with their father or mother.
You can do that even with business partners, right? People,
exactly.
Before going into business, they might do a chart like that.
Exactly, and that's amazing. But I found that it's when people come specifically with questions and issues and desire to solve things within the family, we need to develop something that it's really unique towards that unit as a family. So the charts that we do for that, they're called family dynamic charts. And then we take more than one or two charts. We take the entire family that we're interested to look at. So it can be the father, the mother, the kids. Sometimes it can be the grandparents as well. And we really, this is even more complex, take a look at everyone as a whole, as a unit, at the tikkun, at the dynamics within, and it can be one sibling and the other, like you mentioned, right? Sometimes they push each other buttons and you don't know how to explain it and but you can understand how everybody in this unit can function better, more spiritual. We can understand the relationship from past life. And the idea is to really help create a better dynamic within the family, that everybody can help each other. And definitely the parents that are kind of like driving the ship, right, that needs to have those tools to see. So this is basically what I do.
Can you give an example of something that you uncovered in doing one of those readings?
It's very interesting. Sometimes families are coming in different shapes and forms, right? I had the family that comes, not traditional family. It's a mother of two kids. The parents divorce, is already out of the picture. She has a new boyfriend. One of the kids is challenged, is disabled. And there is a whole dynamic, there is a very strong relationship between her current boyfriend and him. You see a lot of things that explains it. You see a lot of things that even the father that already moved overseas, and she might want to try to disconnect him from, he wasn't such a good role model from the kid's life. When you look at the chart, you see how he actually needs to be at the kid's life, and to what extent he needs to be in the kid's life, and how to handle that relationship. This is just a little bit of a complex example. You could just go by your, go by what you feel, or like try to determine what's the right thing to do just based on your experience with a certain individual in that setting. But if you try to see deeper into the relationship with that father and the kids, you'll have a different perspective. You'll understand you can't cut him off. Otherwise, you don't help your kids. So this is just a simple example.
That's a great example, because I think that one of the difficulties in being in a family is that sometimes things get so heated that you can't see clearly. Right, I see a lot with a lot of families where maybe there is divorce or conflict between the adults, that their desire to, I don't know if the revenge or to punish the other person ends up affecting the kids, and people lose the ability to. Not everybody can see the long-term impact that has.
Exactly.
So especially when understanding on a soul level what the soul asked for, it's hard enough. It's like you don't even know your own past lives. How can you pass judgment on other people when you clearly can't see theirs as well? So I think that one of the bigger takeaways, at least for me in this today, is if you could see, like imagine somebody could give you a crystal ball and say, what would you like to learn about the other person? If you could learn about their past, wouldn't it help you better understand where they're coming from now? Here is an amazing tool to better, that's really what it is. It's like the past that's not recorded. You can take family pictures and videos and whatever, but the part that's not recorded, the unseen part, is actually the most valuable piece of information. And that's really what Kabbalistic astrology can provide. Every month, every week on the show, we try to share what's going on energetically. That's one of the main resources we use. Together with the Zohar, we combined, we create this, it's not even a prediction, it's more of a forecast. And the astrologers do the same thing. Conventional astrology may say, well, you're a Scorpio, so you're going to be X, Y, and Z. Kabbalistic astrology says, you're a Scorpio, so here's what you can do. Here's what you can work on. Here's what you can elevate, transform, transcend. That to me is a big word in astrology, because you can say, well, what can I do? My moon is in this and my Mars is in this, so I'm just going to be that. Right. Kabbalistic astrology says, no, you have those things so that you can overcome them. You can rise above them. You have a strength or a weakness, and here's how to work with it.
Right.
Any last words you want to share with our listeners today?
Thinking about it. I just think I love the way that you put it. It's like it's a necessary tool to see beyond what we see, to see beyond what we feel. Even with that example of the parent overseas, you have a certain struggle, you have a certain perspective. We need to understand that our perspective is limited. So to take the step to do a chart reading or to do a family dynamic chart reading, you already, recognizing that I'm limited, that my perspective is limited. I want to see beyond. I want to understand beyond so I can really make the right choices for myself and for my family. So I think that's really fascinating. That's like taking a step of opening your mind, opening your heart, opening your soul for something bigger than yourself.
Amazing. And this is the last few days of this month. I think it's until October 31st. Our listeners have the opportunity to have a 20% discount on the Kabbalistic astrology readings. You can go to weeklyenergyboost.com. The link is there, the coupon code is there, and run, don't walk, because there's only a few days left of that discount. However, the astrology readings, or the ability to schedule one, isn't going away on October 31st. It's just the coupon. So take advantage of that if you can. I certainly would not be here behind this microphone if not for Kabbalistic astrology. So if anything, just take my word for it. It's worth looking into. And as Miriam said, it's really an eye-opening experience to see all the things that you don't see, that we don't see, not to any fault of ours. It's simply the way that the universe is built, is that there is so much more that is unseen than is actually visible or hearable or touchable. There's so much more going on that it really is such a powerful opportunity to be able to do this. Thank you, Miriam, for being here with me this morning. Hopefully we'll get you to come back and do some more discussions with you. As always, you can continue to ask your questions, rate, review, like, share. Next month we have another month of really powerful conversations we'll be having, and we're looking forward to bringing other guests on as well. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next week on the Weekly Energy Boost.